Hi there, and welcome to the IBAC Tech Trek podcast, where we explore the outer reaches of insurance technology. I'm your science officer on this journey, Tom Reid, and beaming aboard to join us today is Simon Hlywa, president of Calefy, who now is clearly understanding why I'm wearing this shirt.
Do I say energize? Is that the way that I beam onto the ship?
Yeah, and if we had a budget for special effects, which we don't, we'd have some cool transporter effects, and you'd appear, but we don't. So here you are.
Fair enough. We're boldly
Anyway.
going where no insurance conversation has gone before. Is that the idea?
Exactly, exactly. So Simon, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's great to be here.
All right. So I'm going to get you to give us a quick bio on yourself, and maybe at the same time you can weave in the background or origin story of Calify while you're at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to do that. Tom, as you know, my background's all technology. So I have a degree in software engineering, and I worked in digital forensics and e-discovery for a while out of university. I eventually ended up managing the cybersecurity practice at Deloitte Calgary, and it was very interesting, but I didn't get to code, so I found it I was a little bored by the job and wanted to code. So I quit and started an insurance brokerage called Fuse Insurance with a longtime friend of mine, Kevin Lee. He's a former partner at formerly Sarah, now Rogers. And our idea was essentially to create a commercial insurance brokerage that was digital from the ground up. So he was the insurance side, I was the technology side. We started our brokerage, we built the website, and then I got to work on the technology. And the first problem I ran into was like, okay, we have a website, we're a commercial insurance brokerage. We want to make sure we're asking the client, some client lands on our website, we've successfully driven a lead to our site. We need to ask them the right questions so that the broker, when they get this first point of contact with the client, hopefully has a lot of the questions that they need already answered, and they could just flow right into the process. So I, a little foolishly in retrospect, was like, surely I can solve this problem quite quickly. And it turns out that there are a lot of questions that have to be asked in the insurance industry, especially when you consider every line of business and every coverage type that may go with that different line of business. So it's it turns out it's thousands and thousands of, or tens of thousands of questions and thousands of forms. And we essentially embarked on this several-year journey where I was designing this software that would help intake a lead off the website, put it through some kind of vetted insurance process, and then our goal is to make sure that the first point of contact that the broker has with the client, especially if it's a web lead, is a completed application that they can just take directly to market. So we spent several years working on that, and in February of 2020, it incorporated Calify, spun it off, the software operations, into its own entity. I became the president of Calify, and we brought on a few co-founders, and we've been working with brokers and selling our software to MGAs and all around the insurance industry ever since. That was kind of our origin story.
Awesome. So normally I like to ask people what their tool does, but I think you've already started down that road. So is it fair to say that unlike most intake forms on a broker's website where it's simply, hey, give me your name, give me your phone number, and write in this text box what you want, you're actually getting them driving that client very far down the input process to the point where a broker could take that information and then actually start to generate a submission to many carriers. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, that's 100% correct. I think that we refer to that style of intake form that you described up top. We call that like a contact us form, because it's you hit the contact us button, you get those four fields and maybe a little blurb, and from there the process is essentially the same as it was 20 years ago, where the broker gets that email, sees what the client wants, and then goes and digs up an application, either and mails it to them, or I guess mails it to them back then, emails it to them now. And if they, maybe they fill it out. If they're really tech savvy, they might type their answers in, but more likely they are printing out a PDF application, filling it out by hand, and then sending back a hand-filled PDF application. And that's the process that we're really trying to avoid. If we have the client there, we have them expressing that they're interested in insurance, let's do it. Like, let's take them further down that path. And I think, especially for tech savvy consumers, especially like myself, if I go to a website and I see a contact us form, I'm usually just bailing out of there immediately. Like, it's not, I want the technical integration. I want that automation. I want to be passing my information along to whoever needs to get it as quickly as possible. And I know that's, I know a contact us form is just an email. So essentially the goal is make sure those questions are asked up top, make sure that we have, especially for those small cookie cutter lines of business where you know exactly what questions you have to ask you, and there's 30 of them and they're all about whatever, how you walk dogs or how you sell Amazon packages or whatever the case may be. Our goal is to have all those questions asked immediately, have them filled out, and then once the broker gets the notification that someone's answered all those questions, they can, just like you said, take it directly to market from there.
Okay. So this is predominantly for commercial lines. Um, are there segments of commercial that Calefy is more suitable for versus others? Like I would imagine that if you need to insure a satellite, this may not be a self-serve kind of process, but
Yeah, I would say, let's say you're a rocket company, you're looking for a satellite base station and you want to ensure that and you need E&O, probably there are going to be more questions than whatever we're able to capture on the web form. And that's not really our ideal market segment. Where we are, I think where you get the most gains is on those low premium accounts where there's, where if you spend an hour and a half or 2 hours collecting data from a client, that may be your entire first year profitability. Like that may be, you could have, and even if your signing rate is, let's say, 50%, or you're binding 50% of accounts that you close. If you spend an hour and a half, 2 hours on them, that's really now, more like an expected 4 hours on each account. And that's if you're selling small policies that are $1,000, $2,000 a year, you're pretty, your margins are looking pretty tough pretty quickly there. So
okay.
I think that's the kind of business that we are most ideal for, where it's relatively cookie cutter, and also high touch, and you want to get those touches down so that you can essentially make those accounts profitable.
So the customer comes into the website, fills out the form appropriate to whichever line of business, answers the questions appropriate to whichever line of business or whatever segment of commercial they're going after. What happens at that point? Because the broker is using a BMS, they might be using some other tools. Does Calefy integrate with some of those other tools?
Yeah, absolutely. We're not looking to be a BMS here, is what we like to say. We have some ability to manage the account within our platform, but ideally we want this flowing into whatever process you already have when you're binding these new accounts. So as far as tools we're integrated with, pretty much all the major BMSs. We're working on our applied integration right now, and I'm hoping that by the time this podcast comes out, that should be up and running. We're integrated with SIG and a bunch of CRMs as well. Kind of what the major benefit of our tool is because we have built all this code ourselves from the ground up. We have a lot of flexibility. So we have a wide variety of integration methods that we use with different clients. So some clients want it just directly into their BMS. Some want it into a CRM first. Some want it into a CRM. And then once something changes in the CRM, they want it piped into the BMS after that. So I would say integration and connection with these APIs is kind of the name of the game, and that's what we've spent a lot of our time doing. I think we're integrated with 5 or 6 CRMs, 3 or 4 BMSs, something like that, and then we have a bunch of third-party data providers as well. But yeah, the idea is exactly like you said. Someone comes in off the website, they answer the questions that would go into the CRM or the BMS or kind of wherever you need it to go. It's pretty easy for us to build to your process since we already have these integrations. When we trigger them is kind of just up to each client individually.
So earlier you were talking about how the amount of time that a broker might spend on some of these potential clients goes down with Calefy. Can you dig into that a bit more? Do you have any stats around what sort of efficiency gain, productivity gain that your clients are seeing with Calefy?
Yeah, I mean, My favorite use case is we had a client who was looking to sell Amazon accounts. So, the kind of secret sauce in the background of our tool is that when we want to build a new form for a new line of business, that's incredibly easy for us. That's something that is a very quick, couple hour process. So they had Amazon accounts and they had a landing page for those Amazon accounts, and they wanted a form for it. So we built them the form in an hour, sent it out, and it was sitting there for months. And what happened is that Amazon sent out an email requiring all vendors to get insurance. And suddenly their landing page got linked in a couple places and went from 2 or 3 hits a month to like 15 hits a day or 15 submissions a day. And that
Wow.
was really that was that pace of submissions continued for, I think it was like 3 or 4 months. So they were just getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of leads in the door. And I think it was a great case study for our software, because if for each one of those leads they had to go dig out the application, send it over to them, get the application back, verify that they've actually filled out the right spots of the PDF, translate that into the insurer submission, and then send that out, that would have been a crushing amount of work to deal with those hundreds of leads. This is a relatively small client, so they only had 1 or 2 brokers working on this. But because our tool was sitting there and our tool was asking all the questions up top, they were able, a lot of the question or a lot of the submissions were coming in fully complete, and they were just doing a quick check over all the information and then sending it off to the market within 5 minutes. So they were actually able to intake all these leads because of our tool, without staffing up and without a crazy amount of overtime or anything like that. These brokers were able to manage that massive influx with just in their regular work hours, largely due to the time savings of our tool.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask you the next couple of questions, two questions in one, because I find them to be typically closely related. So in the experience of users of Calefy, so the broker users of Calefy, how has Calefy helped improve the client experience for those clients that are insuring that go through the Calefy process? And have those brokers experienced sales growth as a result of that?
Yeah, I think the sales growth that we've seen is like what I've just described there. In that Amazon case, our conversion rate on people landing on our page was insane for that campaign. I think we were converting 65% of people who landed on the page completed a full application. And I think that was because we were the only automated application for Amazon at that time. So if these Amazon sellers went to, quickly visited 5 websites looking for insurance, they saw 4 contact us forums, and then they saw ours where we were asking, hey, what's the link to your Amazon URL? Please add a list of all your products here. What countries do you get your products from? um, because we were asking all of that and they could see that the questions were relevant to their line of business. I think it drew in people much more than a contact us forum would have, because you have all of these tech savvy consumers who are seeing that there actually is technology involved. And I think that's a real benefit for them. And as far as their experience goes, the end insured experience, their experience is better because it's automated. They don't have to deal with sending out a contact us form, answering the email, filling out the PDF. It's just immediate. They answer all their data, or answer all the questions right away, enter all their data, and they're getting a quote back faster. They're having to deal with fewer kind of in-person back and forths. It's faster experience for them, faster experience for the broker. I think it's just kind of better all around for everybody.
Well, it's interesting because in the marketing world, they're always talking about personas, which are groups of people with like interests. And like if you go back 10, 15, 20 years ago, the vast majority of insurance buyers were in person, yellow pages, over the phone. And then, there's a little sliver of people who wanted to buy online. And nowadays that sliver has grown into a significant chunk of the pie. I've heard stats a couple of years ago that something like 75% of insurance purchases start online. And in a lot of cases, they don't end online because the broker doesn't have the technology to actually make that happen. But when you start fulfilling that need that clearly exists in the client marketplace, people are obviously going to take advantage of that and be happy about it because they're oriented that way and they see someone who's also oriented that way, and they go, great, this is someone I want to deal with, as opposed to, a contact us page where I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to talk to somebody, and I'm going to have to tell them all the information again. Whereas I would just, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, I would just like to hammer the stuff out and feel like somebody's taking care of it for me.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly correct. I would say I would definitely put myself in that category of people who just want to get it done online immediately, and I think that market segment is only growing. And I find it, honestly, we run into some of these brokerages that spend a ton of effort, and I can see their ads. I can see that they're spending time trying to drive leads to their website, and I get to their website and it's a contact us form. And I'm like, why? How much money are you spending on marketing to get people to try to send you emails? Like, make that, if it's me, if it's my business, definitely trying to make that landing page. There's someone there. They're interested in buying an insurance. Get them get them on board right now. Get them as far down the process as they want to go immediately, rather than hoping that they follow up to the email that you send out in 24 or 48 hours, or maybe even, if it's 2 a.m. on a Friday, maybe even 3 or 4 days later, which is, just a bad experience for everyone, I think.
Okay, so let's get into some technical considerations here. So you are collecting client data, which needs to be protected and secured and so on. Can you talk about how Calefy ensures the security of that client's information?
Yeah, so you may remember at the beginning there, I said that I worked in cybersecurity for a while. So if I go off on a tangent here, just rein me back in, because I think I could talk about this for like 2 hours. But
Okay,
essentially,
for the record, please don't.
I thought this was a science podcast, Tom. Isn't this a Trek podcast? Don't we want to talk about network security? Seems pretty important on a starship.
No, just say dilithium crystals and we'll move on.
We're mostly using dilithium crystals. It's dilithium crystals. Our antimatter containment field really is what's keeping all the clients secure. No, so to understand how we are secure, it's kind of important to understand what leads to insecurity. We were doing what was called penetration testing back in the day, where people would hire us to break into their companies. So we're ethical hackers. They're saying, "Hey, can you hack into our company? Are you capable of that?" And then we would just hit them with everything we had and let them know where we were able to get in. And where we were always able to get in was into some desktop, some laptop. It hadn't been updated in forever. It's running some old service. We get into that service, and then we are able to escalate and grow and kind of expand out in the network, kind of like a virus. And that was whenever a company was running their services themselves, that was our path in, and it was successful 100% of the time. So essentially, we've just bypassed all of that. So we have our network for our own development, and then our production server is accessed by no one, and there's no one, even myself, I cannot access it without. But this is all in Amazon Web Services in a cloud, away from that 15-year-old desktop that is running that old service that is super vulnerable to some kind of attack. It is just a fully isolated environment where the only path in is through our web application or when we deploy code. And those are literally the only two paths. There's no one who's able to, RDP into the server and check something real quick. There's no access to the production database. And we've very intentionally spent a lot of effort avoiding that, so that we essentially have reduced our attack surface from our entire internal network to just the single web application, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, awesome. That and dilithium crystals.
Dilithium crystals, also the dilithium crystals. That's, very important.
Okay, let's talk about scaling. So I presume you have some clients who are smaller, some are bigger. Can Calefy scale with a bigger client? And secondly, is there any sort of incremental benefit for a bigger client versus a smaller client with Calefy?
Yeah, kind of one of the um, sadder discoveries of the last 2 years for Calefy has been just how much more beneficial it is for larger clients. The because the setup is relatively straightforward, the setup is relatively simple for our application, and from that setup, the amount of benefit you get is time multiplied by number of employees. So the more employees you have, the more time you are saving with our tool. As far as scalability goes, I won't get too far into all of the dilithium crystals of it, but we have, we're up on Amazon Web Services, which hosts like most of the internet, and we use something called auto scaling there. So whenever one of our servers is a little bit taxed, it spins up another server, and when the servers aren't taxed, it spins them down, but it's able to kind of scale how many dilithium crystals or warp cores, or I'm not sure what the metaphor would be, but increases the number of warp cores and lets more people visit our website.
I think you just about touched on implementation there a second ago, and so I want to delve into that as well, because no matter how good or how secure an application is, if it is not implemented within the client organization correctly, if there's not a good change management, if there's not a good buy-in and a good implementation with that client, things can easily fall down. Can you talk about how or what the process of implementation is for a new Calefy client?
Most of the work on the client side comes from custom integrations that they want. So if they want, they want it going into this CRM, but they want it structured like this, and also they have this category of deals in the CRM, and we should fit our data to that category of deal. That's a fair amount of implementation work. But for the most part, because our solution is designed to sit on your website, it's designed to be client facing. So it's designed to be immediately accessible by everyone the moment it's implemented. And that's what it is. Most of the implementation work is on us. We essentially are just hosted on your subdomain. So if you're your lastnameinsurance.ca, that's, you have your whole website there, and then there's a get a quote button. We live there, and it sends you to secure.lastnameinsurance.ca, and that kind of sidesteps a lot of the implementation difficulties of some older solutions that require things like on-prem servers or Citrix or all of these kind of slightly dated technologies. I'm trying to be diplomatic with my wording there. I think dated technologies is fair. But we use OAuth for sign in, which means you're able to sign in with your Microsoft account or your Google account, and it really reduces the work of implementation on the client side pretty significantly. I would say that it's really just connectivity. If you want some custom connectivity, that's the main area of work.
And now the $64,000 question: how much does Calify cost?
Yeah, we essentially have bespoke pricing. There's no one answer I can give there. We can't charge per user because, like I said, we're public facing. We're facing facing the general, the outside world. So there's no user login required to use our tool. That kind of eliminates the per user pricing. But we work with clients to find a pricing model that works best for them. We've done per quote costs for some clients, but our primary costing structure is just with a monthly recurring fee, like you would with any SaaS product, that kind of scales based on the size of the brokerage and based on their usage, and then it's just that monthly minimum, and that's kind of it. But obviously, the cost for a 2-person brokerage and a 200-person brokerage is going to be pretty different. But
Right,
it's not, unfortunately, not as simple as just a flat per user cost.
right, understood. Well, and it sounds like there's some pretty good ROI in there, and obviously it's going to be a different price for that 200-person operation versus that 2-person operation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think the way we look at it is every quote that's passing through the system is saving you at least like an hour of time, and that is, that's pretty significant. So if we're charging, a couple bucks for that hour of time saving, the ROI is really significant.
So, Simon, let's go 2, 3 years down the road. What will Calify look like? Are you going to expand the product? Are you going to expand the reach? Are you going to expand geographically? Where's Calify going over the next few years?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I think that we were a little early in the market. We've been kind of ready to integrate QBI solutions. We were ready maybe 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. Those are things that are coming online or have come online recently. But I think it just looks like increasing integrations. Essentially, we have our in the box QBI quotes, and we're looking to grow that box. So we want more and more lines to go further and further down the process, so that you're able to get as close to that quote bind issue. We're able to actually complete the sale for the insured on the site. I think it's just going to be more and more progress towards that, and having it be a larger and larger set of our businesses that are quotable like that. But I think we're very much at the start of our style of tool here, where it's just now that we're able to complete these sales in this kind of generic tool. And I think that's as we get more MGAs and more insurers that are spinning up APIs, I think that's just going to increase. And hopefully, 3 or 4 years from now, we're closer to the UK market, which obviously has a ton of their small business insurance is purchased online. I think we'll just trend more and more towards that.
Yeah, and there's no real reason why small commercial insurance can't be transacted online. It's just historically it hasn't been. There's always been technical roadblocks, human roadblocks. But from a consumer's perspective, you can see the mounting pressure to do this kind of stuff because to get that contract with the truck or the small electrical company or dentist office or whatever, they don't really have time or care to do all this investigation. They want to go online, get it done, get it over with, and move on with their actual jobs. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a logical future state in my opinion as well.
Yeah, I think that's 100% correct. Their insurance is a small checklist item on their massive to-do list, and it's not the focus of any of their businesses. So I think the faster that you can help them get to a quote that they're happy with, the better off everyone's going to be.
The world of insurance is changing because the world of tech is changing. Join us on the journey at ibactech.ca.